Hello again. What's up, man? This is Friday, the Friday edition of Locked On Jaguars. Glad to have you here. Hey, this is what we're going to talk about today. It's possible that 15 or 16 of the 22 starters are Dave Caldwell picks. Does that bother you? Maybe it should, maybe it shouldn't. We'll talk about it here in the first segment of today's show on Locked On Jaguars.
It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Jags, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, man? It's Friday. All right. So the Jags play on Monday. We'll have more about the game on Monday's podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network, Locked On Jaguars. Thank you for coming in again today. It's your team every day, man. So we're going to be here every day, giving it to you Monday through Friday, all the way through the season. And I want to discuss this today. There was so much talk in the past about just changing everything up, switching everything out. And of course, the Jaguars cleaned house with 99% of everything that they had here as far as front office last year when they fired Dave Caldwell along with head coach Doug Marrone. They didn't even happen at the same time, by the way. I think Caldwell went first. But Trent Baalke's still here, and one of the things that I always said was, just, if you're going to clean it all the way. And Baalke was here in some capacity last year. But that's neither here nor there. We don't have to go back over that too much because what's done is done. But here's the thing that I want to bring up. It's possible that right now, according to the unofficial depth chart, I counted 15 guys who started last year, 16 if you include Gardner Minshew, since he's the quote-unquote co-starter at quarterback. And what does that tell you? For a team that had all of the cap space that the Jaguars had, all of the draft capital that they had, they were active in free agency. What are they doing? What has really changed? Because what it seems like to me is there's been a major co-signing of the actual players that Dave Caldwell selected because they haven't been replaced, and they're fighting guys for jobs right now that we all thought were here to replace them. So we'll go over that and we'll look at it. We'll also look at the fact that right now, one of the problems I see is a depleted offensive line because of injuries. So some of that depth is going to get questioned. And I know we have a couple of weeks or a few weeks from a game that actually matters, but still, you don't like to see you guys banged up. And as it is right now, as it stands right now, if they had to play today, they would not play with a starter on the interior three. So we'll discuss the offensive line and those issues in the second segment. In the third segment, I wonder, is this what you thought it was? When you had all of the enthusiasm in the offseason, I mean, I called it the 6-month barbecue. And then when football stuff actually had to start happening, and you got your first dose and your first test of the game yesterday, and a lot of people from what I see on social media are a little bit disgruntled and confused about this so-called competition at quarterback. How you feeling? Do you feel the same? Has someone poured ice water on your burning embers as your fire sort of gone out a little bit? And I'll ask that question in the third segment. But back to the lead. The lead is what's different? Strength and conditioning program aside, talking is one thing, and talking is cool, and enthusiasm, but what's really different? One of the things that I praised Urban for, and that I hope what happened, is that because of the criticism I had last year and the subsequent years before last year, where it seems like the Jaguars brass just didn't have a plan. The plan was to, let's just see what happens. And I joked about it yesterday a little bit when I was, making faces and just letting my emotions show on my face about things that I did not understand. But that concern is real. The concern is real because the concern I'm talking about, if you guys don't know, is when Urban comes out and says that I don't want to do this and I want to do this, but they're telling me I can't do this, and I'm figuring out why. We love the transparency. We love the fact that you're talking to us and walking us through it. But I think what they're transparent about is what bothers people. You brought in to be a CEO and run stuff and to be fresh and to be new and do things differently. What's changed? If that hasn't changed, then I don't know what we're doing here early on, because I can tell you what hasn't changed. A lot of the lineup hasn't changed from last year. If you look at the unofficial depth chart, and I will preface this by saying, yeah, it's unofficial, but the thing is 15, if you include Gardner Minshew, 16, and folks are sitting here tripping on me saying, is there a real chance he's going to start opening day? Well, apparently there is. I guess I'll get into trade possibilities too, and why I still don't think it's a good idea, and why it doesn't make much sense to me to do it at this point. But it's really, really weird, man. It's just a strange feeling that the thing that I thought they had going for them is that they had a plan, and they still might have a plan. It's just usually people aren't transparent about what they're doing and selling you wolf tickets. If they're going to hide or conceal what they're trying to do, what usually they do it by just not talking at all, or just by being very short. They're not being short and they're not being blunt. They're telling you what's going on. So it almost gives you an idea that, or the idea that they're kind of like in disagreement about how to move and how to proceed with certain things. But do you need to do that in order to trick people, to make them think that you don't know what you're doing? So that's why I don't buy that. I really buy that Urban is being honest when he tells you that he wants to do things one way and the other people want to do things another, and it's a little bit of a tug of war there. And that's the problem. We don't think there should be a tug of war at all. We think Urban should do what Urban wants to do, because that's what Urban, that's one of his strengths, right? At least that's what we all thought. So when you look around for things that have changed, maybe that thing hasn't changed as much as you like. But I know for a fact that what hasn't changed as much as people thought it was going to is the depth chart. Dave Caldwell was run out of here, and there are a lot of people, and I'm not one of them, that think, oh, he's the worst GM ever. No, that's Gene Smith. All right. Oh, he was terrible, and he doesn't know how to pick players. I never said Dave couldn't pick players. I said Dave couldn't team build. Those are two different things. Because when you look at the team right now, on the unofficial depth chart, 15 or 16 of the 22, the guys that were here under Dave Caldwell. There's no way around it. And I'm not sitting here going to bat for Dave Caldwell that he shouldn't have been let go, but you bring this new guy in here that knows talent in Urban Meyer, and all of a sudden Urban Meyer actually likes a lot of the guys that's already on the team that Dave Caldwell picked. At some point, we have to change the way that we view either Urban or the way we view Dave. If they're all bad, why you still like them? If the players were terrible, what's the problem? And then just imagine, this is with Jalen and Yannick not being here. Those are two guys that Dave actually hit on. I mean, what if those guys were still here, and instead of the draft picks and the guys that people took with the picks, like Caleb and CJ, fans act like they don't want them half the time anyway. So those are the two guys that they picked with the first round picks that they got for Jalen Ramsey. So you mean to tell me that Urban Meyer likes all the guys Dave Caldwell picked, but Dave Caldwell was terrible? I don't know. I'm going to tell you in segment 2 something that's very important when I start segment 2 out. When people go, well, they're building the team for the future and it's not a wasted year. And then Urban says it's not, this is a 1-year plan. It's not fair to the guys that are here. And then folks come back at me and they say, well, that's just coach speak. He's supposed to say that. I'm going to tell you why I actually believe him. And it might blow your mind why I actually believe him, but I'm going to explain it to you. And I'm going to tell you, it's not as hard as you guys make it sometimes when you think about whether or not you should believe him or not. So I'm going to tell you that in just a second here on the Friday edition of Locked On Jaguars. I need to tell you about Built Bar again, because apparently y'all been buying them and I love it. But we can always use more people to go buy Built Bar. Why? Because it's the greatest protein bar you've ever had. Did you know that Built Bar has 9 delicious flavors? I know you know I know about that. 2 of them you know about because I always talk about them. That's my backup, which is the raspberry, and my favorite, which is the salted caramel. Great flavor, great taste, an incredible package too. I love the way you package stuff. It makes it look more attractive before you bust it open and consume. And you can consume too by going to BuiltBar.com and using the promo code LOCK15, and you're going to get 15% off of your first order of Built Bar. Now, what you're going to get is something that's packed with protein, very low carbs, very low sugar, and very low calories. So you don't have to worry about your waistline getting bigger while you're enjoying such a great treat. Built Bar at BuiltBar.com. See them on Twitter at @bar_built for all the latest news and maybe a special flavor or two, a special edition Built Bar coming out also. So make sure you follow Built Bar and order those bars using the promo code LOCKED15. Segment 2 rolling along here on Locked On Jaguars on a Friday, talking about the fact that nothing has really changed from a personnel standpoint, with the exception of the addition of Trevor Lawrence, who for some reason is locked in a quarterback competition. But we've talked about that ad nauseum, so I won't berate you and beat you up with that. I'm just trying to ask you the question, was Caldwell really as bad as everyone thinks he was, since all the players he picked seem like they're still, at least about 80% of them are still starting and look like they're going to start this year. They're still the best players on the team. So you say, well, you can't change it all in 1 year. When you have $278 million in salary cap money, and I'm just joking about that, but when you have more salary cap money than anybody, you have a coach that's making promises to do the best and be the best of the best. When you're picking extremely high in the draft, they couldn't pick any higher. And in this draft, they had multiple picks in the first 2 rounds and a high 3rd round pick, the first pick in the 3rd round. You would expect that if the team was 1-15, that you kind of can change this around really, really quickly. They chose to go the infrastructure route instead of the star player route. And they signed, 13, 14 guys in free agency, and they continue to add guys as they got into training camp and guys got injured and rotating guys in, rotating out. You would think that a 1-15 team that had a GM that didn't know how to pick players would have a quick roster turnover when you have all the high draft picks and all the salary cap space. But nothing's really changed. So that's why I was just wondering if Dave Caldwell was so bad, why is it that way? The other part of it is when people go, well, you can't change it all overnight. Let me explain something to you. I agree with that. But there's a certain part of this that I think we're all missing here. And I've talked about Urban Meyer saying that it's not a 1-year deal. I mean, it's a 1-year deal. It's not. We're not looking into the future. So when you guys think that that's coach speak, let me give it to you. A lot of those free agents that were signed in the offseason, they signed 2- and 3-year contracts. Does that now put it in more perspective as to why I believe that he actually wants to win this year? Because here's what happens. If you don't win this year, then you better win in year 2. Because if you don't win in year 2, then in year 3, everybody's going to be a free agent. We get it? So we understand now. We get why I'm saying that we can't let these years go by as if we have an endless supply of them. Because the players that you have under contract won't be under contract much longer. I'll give you a dose of it right here. We're going to talk about that offensive line. Cam Robinson is a franchise tag guy. You better hope Walker Little develops this year to be the starter, because if he doesn't, they're going to have to franchise tag Cam Robinson again or sign him to a long-term deal. And right now, the offensive line is banged up. Let's speak about it. They better hope that Ben Bartch develops, and they better hope that whoever else they're trying to play at right guard develops, because I believe A.J. Cann is a free agent. If he's not a free agent, he doesn't have very long left on his contract. Andrew Norwell is a free agent after this season, and Brandon Linder's getting a year older. So is it concerned that the offensive line is banged up right now? Yes, because you won't have a good representation and a good view of what you actually really have. And if you lose this year, where do you go? Where do you go? You hope to sign a free agent, interior guys in free agency. Do you draft a guy? And if you draft a guy, it's still going to take you a little bit longer because now it's another young rookie trying to get used to the NFL. What about wide receiver? What do? Do you re-sign DJ Chark? These are things that comes up. These are the things that are going to come up. This is why I say I agree with Urban when he says you can't waste a year. It's a year-by-year thing. Because come next year, a lot of the guys that they have are going to be a year older or be closer to their contract ending. And you're going to have to make decisions. So when you make decisions and you replace them with more young players, then that's going to be an excuse for you to say, well, we're young, we're getting there, we got another year. Then you get to year 3. And when you get to year 3, you look back and all you did was talk about how it's a slow process. See, I keep bringing this up because this is exactly what happened with Dave Caldwell. About year 2, I said something's wrong. This ain't right with that whole Gus Bradley thing. And folks were like, you got to be patient. You got to be patient. You got to be patient. Gene Smith left the cupboard bare. Gene Smith was the worst GM ever. You got to be patient. So there were other teams that were just like Jacksonville that started winning. And Jacksonville didn't. 4 years into that whole regime, okay, Dave Caldwell's gone. We get another coach. Bring Tom Coughlin back. Have 1 year of success. 3 years after that, you look back and you have 7 years and you go, what did we do? I'll tell you what you did. You accepted complacent. You got complacent and you accepted the fact, well, it's a slow process. You cannot waste years in the NFL. This is why I think Trevor needs to be playing right now. You know why? Let him get that stuff, whatever it's going to take for him to get better, let him get it out of his system right now. If you're going to learn by having guys learn on the field. See what you got. Put guys on the field. But we have to stop taking this approach that this year is there are no throwaway years. You're either getting better or you're staying stagnant. Every bad organization, including this one, and you guys know this, keep talking about you're building for the future and throwaway years and all of this stuff. After a while, you stack those things up and it's 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And then you look back and you realize, well, we made a mistake. We actually should have pushed harder and expected more. So that's what I'm trying to get you guys out of doing. So how do you feel right now? Do you still feel good about the team the way you did in the offseason? I want to know. I want to know if your fire's been put out. I've seen a lot of people, and it's early, and I don't think you have to have a total picture of it right now, but it's still early. But a lot of people I've seen have gone, it's the same old Jaguars. I don't agree with that, by the way. But I will relay what people have been telling me, and I'll do it in the third and final segment here on a Friday of Locked On Jaguars. Let's talk about BetOnline, man. BetOnline.ag is something that you guys need to get on right now. You're a year late. I've been telling you about it since last year, but you're never too late to get started. It's that time of year again, and all eyes are now turning to football as teams are back on the gridiron to start the football season. As always, BetOnline is your number one spot for all the pro and college football action this season. Get all the updated odds, props, contests, including online's biggest $500,000 mega contest and the world's largest $200,000 NFL Survivor contest, which is open now at BetOnline. Head to the website and use your mobile device and sign up today. And guess what? You're going to receive a 100% welcome bonus. You heard me. I did not stutter. 100% welcome bonus when you use the promo code Locked On. It's BetOnline, man. Make sure you take advantage of the opening day super promo and make a bet on Thursday, September 9th, the season opener between Tampa and Dallas. And if you lose, your wager will be refunded up to $25 for new customers only now when signing up and using the promo code NFL100. BetOnline, man. It's where I go. It's where you need to go to get paid. So I got to let you guys know also, I meant to do this earlier about the Peacock and Williamson podcast. Peacock and Williamson podcast is something you need to be getting on because when you really want this stuff broken down with analytics and you really want somebody who's going to give it to you. My man Brian Peacock is the absolute truth of that. He's a great NFL analyst, and he's with Matt Williamson, who is a former NFL scout, who has a perspective like no other. So it's the best podcast going. I love those guys. Big shout out to the Peacock and Williamson podcast. Make sure you subscribe to that here on the Locked On Podcast Network or wherever you get your podcast. How do you feel? How y'all feeling right now, man? Is it a case of we got too excited, too fast, and too quickly? Is it a case of, well, we just have a dose of reality where we need to be a little bit more patient? Is it this is going to take longer than we thought? Is it we're overthinking this because we're assuming that Trevor's not going to start when he probably could? Or is it still we hired Urban to do a job for a reason? A man knows more about football in his pinky fingernail than most of us do in our big head brains. So the thing is if he knows so much, and just let him do what he does and get out of the way and stop overanalyzing everything. So I know that last thing I said, that's what's going to come from a lot of people. But if that's the case, then say it. I don't mind, because that's what I'm doing. I'm asking you guys to talk about it, because I'm going to tell you what I've been getting a lot of. And I've been hearing a lot of people discuss this in this sense. This is ridiculous. I'm tired of this nonsense. Why are they doing this to Trevor? What's going on? Is it because they already sold the tickets? You know how they tell a 4-star recruit he's going to start, and then he signs, and then they tell him he's going to redshirt. Well, you signed up for that paperwork now, so you're here. Where's the enthusiasm? Where's that same stuff that they were doing in the offseason? You know, if they don't win, what's going to start coming up, right? Being in wrestling videos, talking and doing all of this extra stuff that has nothing to do with wins and losses. It will, because that's just the nature of the business. That enthusiasm will take a turn and turn into a finger of condemnation, and they will keep pointing it right at you, the one who did all of the talking and all of the hoopla. And a lot of people who marketed things and talked about Trevor Town and went really, really crazy with it, they're going to be mad at you, because they're going to feel that you're not allowing all of that energy to manifest itself into something productive, because you're keeping the brakes on it because you're being too careful. Yeah, all of it. Those are the feelings, those are the things that are actually going on. And some of the questions that we have to answer is, do we need to just pause and take a pill and chill for a minute? Are things that bad? But I know it just doesn't seem like you all thought it was going to seem. It doesn't feel like you thought it was going to feel right now. And it's only after one game, but it's not just the game, it's the messaging. And I told you messaging is extremely important. Fans do a real good job of listening to everything you do and every single thing that you say. And I can tell you right now is it doesn't quite feel the way I anticipated it feeling based on all of the enthusiasm of the offseason. But we right here on Locked On Jaguars, we warned that when it comes down to it, none of this stuff means anything if they don't win on the field and make those progressions. So that's why I'm eager to see game 2, because I think we can grab some of that back. And that's why I was disappointed in the first preseason game, because somebody came into my office today and they said, when do Jags play back at home? I said, second week of the season, the regular season. There were no do-overs. The first look at this new team, and to continue all of that enthusiasm, they pretty much had a dud. They had 85 yards in the first half against backups from the other team. And the next 2 preseason games are road games, and then they open the season on the road. So a little bit of a misstep, and I think that probably has a lot to do with why some of the enthusiasm is the way that it is. All right, man. So make sure you guys take care of each other this weekend, and make sure you continue to tune in here on Locked On Jaguars. I tell you what, Locked On Bets, that's something else you need to pay attention to, because before you start making these wagers and before you start going in here trying to win you some money, make sure you tune into the Locked On Bets podcast hosted by your boy Q and handicapping expert Lee Sterling. Get daily picks, blowout specials, wrong team favorite picks, and Lee Sterling's lock of the day. Follow the Locked On Bets podcast brought to you by betonline.ag wherever you get podcasts. As I always tell you, take care of each other. I really mean that on the weekends, man, because the weekends is where we're supposed to have fun. Make sure that that's what we do. But don't forget to take care of each other and come join us back Monday. I may have my man Ross Jackson from Locked On Saints. We may do a little bit of a crossover episode, maybe, for Monday's game. I may have that for you guys on Monday, but we'll see. And as a reminder, I'm also the host of the Wednesday edition, along with James Rapine, the Wednesday edition of Locked On NFL, which you also should be subscribed to. Okay, man, it's your man Tony Wiggins here, signing off for Locked On Jaguars. Take care. Sayonara, arrivederci, and all.